See her in the Oval Office, where she presided over Guardian of the Gate for 2.5 years. She has a brand new book out, Off the Record, which is a tremendous read. I wrote a column about it in the Washington Post yesterday, which was the most read thing in the paper in the early afternoon. And Madeleine joins me now. Madeleine, congratulations. This is a terrific book.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm really, really happy to be with you.
Well, I read it with great interest. It's always more fun when you know the author. But
Yes.
I also know you in your professional capacity. I talked to the president a few times when you were manning the barring the door. Actually, you write on page 169, saying no to protect the president's time was my job, and I became good at it. If I hadn't been there, there would have been chaos in the Oval Office. Now, Molly's pretty good at it too, but tell the audience what that's like. How many calls a day want to get through to the president?
Oh, it's nonstop. From the moment he wakes up until the moment he goes to sleep at night, he is constantly working. He's on the phone. He's taking meetings, and so what I learned was he was the most accessible president that I believe we've had in a very long time. And honestly, that made my job very difficult because my job was to keep him on schedule, and he oftentimes made 15-minute meetings into 30-minute meetings just because he wanted to spend quality time with everybody.
The call count must be off the chart. Newt Gingrich writes in his new book, he's the most accessible president in modern history. And I believe that to be true. It's been my experience that everybody who actually has a legit thing gets a call back from the president. I'm sure you get some
100%.
nutters, but if it's a legit thing, he calls them back.
Yes, absolutely. It drives some people crazy because he doesn't go through the normal quote unquote process that he might supposed to have to go through in order to talk to members of Congress or members of the cabinet. But yeah, he calls everybody back.
Now, we're going to get to the key part about the media here, but I want people to understand there's a glimpse of President Trump, or actually a big view of President Trump in Off the Record you won't get anywhere else in one of the tell all books, page 178. I also told him right away, this is Madeleine writing, whenever I heard from one of his sisters or his brother. They always understood if he was busy. Just give Donald my love, they would say. I don't need to talk to him. That meant the world to the president. He'd always call them back. Now, his brother died over the weekend, Madeleine, and you wrote
Yes.
this obviously many months ago, and you couldn't have known that was going to happen. But I did not know this until I read your book. I didn't know he was close to his siblings.
Oh, he's very close to his siblings. He's close to every member of his family, and that was one of the things that I noticed right away is just how loving he is towards his family. Even I believe his sisters are older than him, but his brother was younger, and he just has a very, very a lot of respect for them and a lot of admiration for them. So it was really, really interesting and sweet to see that side to him that not many people get to see.
I also had to laugh out loud when you write about Peter Navarro. Rob and
Oh,
I worked together on keeping Peter from causing too much trouble. It was a challenge. Peter didn't properly vet documents and often went rogue on TV. I tell people Peter's one of the most charming people in the world. I've known him for 30 years because he lived in Irvine, like you and me.
yes, yeah.
But he can go rogue on TV, right? He was right about China, but he is often wrong on TV. So
Well,
I ha-
he's very passionate about his issues, and so a lot of what I say in the book is just my opinion.
Yeah, well, I loved it. I loved it. I laughed out loud. I think Peter will laugh out loud.
So I hope.
Let's get to the part that I think drove traffic to the Washington Post column yesterday. Of all the people screwed by the media, and that's a long, long list, you're at the top of it because they broke an off the record conversation. One thing I want to know, do you think they knew it was off the record? Because I think I know who broke it, but you're very diplomatic. Do you think they knew what they were doing?
I do believe that the parameters of the dinner were made very clear at the beginning. I think, as I'm sure you know, those kinds of off the record dinners and drinks and stuff are very common. And this was my first time ever really interacting with the press at all. But these were four very respected journalists, whether you like what they have to say or not. And so I have no doubt that they knew what the rules were. And I talk about this in my book, but I've been told so many different theories about who told who and how the information was made not off the record. And I've decided it's not going to change what happened. I definitely take responsibility for it, but I know that what they did was they hurt the president and his family by
Yeah,
sharing this
and I
information.
think when Mick Mulvaney fired you, he should not have done so. I know you say you resigned, but it sounds like Mick Mulvaney pushed you out. I'm not even sure that would have happened if the president had 24 hours to think about it. Mick made some bad decisions, and I like Mick Mulvaney, but this was not a good decision. And I just believe, I know it's not Steve Holland who was at the dinner. Steve is the nicest man in America and
That's
also
so
the
true.
best reporter in America.
Yes.
So I know it's not Steve, and I wouldn't be surprised if Steve has berated whoever it is, because that destroys trust between key aides and the press, and they complain about not getting to see the president. But if you're going to break the rules like that, people aren't going to talk to you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the media has really had a bias towards this president since the day he announced his candidacy, and it hasn't really stopped. And unfortunately, they'll do anything to hurt him. But, with all the pressing substantive issues at hand, I don't understand how reporting on my comments at a dinner did anything constructive. It doesn't make sense to me.
It didn't, except maybe this book, which gives a different perspective of the president. That's a lot of suffering to go through to get a different perspective. On page 300, you write, I must give a special thanks to President Trump. The more than 2.5 years I spent sitting outside the Oval Office were the most exciting of my life. I wish everyone could get to know him the way I did. They would never doubt how much he loves the country. I mean, you say that again and again, and I don't think anyone else outside of his family is in a better position for those years to gauge how he reacted to this. There is this vision of him, which you knock down explicitly, as the angry man, and it just isn't true.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. The man that I got to know was kind and generous and very compassionate, and so I try to share some stories that paint him in that light. I share some stories where he's a little bit more vulnerable, and just I didn't set out to change anybody's mind, but hopefully just for people to pause and kind of reflect on everything the media is telling them and maybe question what they're being told.
Very effectively, Madeleine Westerhout. By the way, you're new to the writing business. You have to say the title of Off the Record 7 times in any interview. So whenever you refer to your book, if you've done this long enough, when Newt Gingrich comes on next week, he'll say his title 100 times. You got to say, in my book, Off the Record, because if people don't hear Off the Record 7 times, they won't remember Off the Record. So that's just a little
good tip. I will make sure to do that. Thank
pro
you.
tip, Off the Record. Yeah. What bothered me more than anything was the constant stories you write that the president was angry the whole day, berating his aides. I had been with him from practically the moment he stepped into the Oval Office, and I can assure you that wasn't the case. Where the media came up with lies like that was beyond me. Well, it fits it. They have an agenda, don't they, Madeleine? They want him to lose.
They absolutely have an agenda, and they'll do anything they can to continue that agenda. And so what I have found over the past year, as I have kind of stepped away, is that they're so anti this president, and they kind of give everybody else a break, but they never give the president the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's a very dangerous state for our democracy. I think people turn on the TV, open up the newspapers expecting the truth, and I'm not sure that that's the case anymore.
Well, you must shudder when you see Anthony Scaramucci. The Mooch is really in a category by himself. The White House was rid of him, you said, after his the shortest history as a comms director. But I wasn't. Even after he was ousted, Anthony called the president on a regular basis. You would think he would have been a bit humbled by such a public humiliation, but you don't know Anthony. He is kind of shameless. He's a Harvard law guy, and he's just kind of shameless. And now he goes on TV and he just rips the president. I think to myself, gratitude in D.C. really has a shelf life of about a minute.
Well, I just think it's so interesting that there are so many people, Anthony, Michael Cohen, so many people that were so close to the president, and then things didn't go their way, and then they write a terrible book about him. And so the last thing I wanted to do was just be another person who writes a book, and that's why I wanted to make my book a little bit more personal as well. But yeah, I don't understand how these people could be so close to the president, praise him every single day, and then things don't go their way and they turn on him.
And Madeleine, you know who asks him for favors, right? Whenever I've called, you've said, what do you want to talk to him about? What's the deal? And so you know who asks him to do things, and you know who calls for comment. You know the reporters like me who call. I'm pretty reserved. I don't abuse any kind of time of the president, or he won't call you back if you abuse it. But you know everyone when they go on air, and you know how it disconnects from reality. Off the record gives us a few glimpses of that. But I mean, it must be quite the experience to watch television when you've been there for 2.5 years, knowing who's calling every week or every day even.
Yes, absolutely. It's very interesting to sit back this past year and watch what's unfolded. And it always seems like there's something new. The Ukraine investigation, there's always something new. And I hope the American people know what they're doing when they walk into the voting booth on November 3rd. I think it's going to be a very interesting election.
Your book will help them. And is it November 3rd or 2nd? I don't know. Madeleine, tell me one thing. What are you doing now? Are you in California or are you back inside the Beltway?
I am back in California. I'm so happy to be home. I went to school in South Carolina and then moved right to DC. So I haven't really been home for like over 10 years. And I just needed a break from the Beltway, and I'm very excited to be home and spend some time with my family.
Well, good for you, and congratulations on Off the Record. It's a fine first book. I think any media company that knows what it's doing would bring you on board immediately to start commenting on this campaign. Madeleine Westerhout's brand new book is available at Amazon.com, Off the Record.